Wow. Thank you, Dr. Foreman. Very kind words. John and Hanukkah, I just want to thank you guys for having me here. I'm honored to speak in front of such wonderful people who have actually made a difference in my life. And so I wanted to tell you a little bit about my story. Like Dr. Foreman said, my name is Ben Teller, and I'm a 3-time lymphoma survivor. And without the City of Hope, I don't think I would be here today. But more than that, without the Nesvig Fellowship Program, I'm almost certain I wouldn't be here. Because part of my treatment, like Dr. Foreman said, was actually made possible by everybody's donations here. Now, over the past 5 years, I have realized that the most important thing in my life are relationships. Now, I have built a relationship with somebody that has been there for me since day one, and that person's my mom. Now, I know that there's no way I'd be standing up here without her guidance throughout the past few years. So, September 17, 2007, it was 4 days before I was moving into college my freshman year. And I was having reoccurrence of fevers. And so my mom, rightfully so, was worried. She wanted me to get checked out. After about 9 hours of the doctor's office, we ended up in an oncologist's office at 9 p.m. that night. I really had no idea why. I was kind of listening to a doctor explain to me chemotherapy, side effects, and I don't remember anything, not one thing. The only thing I remember from that night was turning to my mom and saying, "Hey, Mom, am I going to be going to college in 4 days?" And she just said no. And that's the first time I lost it, because that's all I wanted to do, right? All I wanted to do was go to college, be with my friends, embark on this journey that we had talked about for so many years. But I wasn't able to do that. So I kind of built this shield around me when cancer came into my life. I didn't want there to be any correlation between my name and cancer. Some people called it denial, being naive, but it was my way of surviving. After 6 months of chemotherapy, I was put into remission, and I attended school spring quarter my freshman year. I was so happy. It was all in the past. 18 months flew right by. I had a couple internships, a job, and I was living in Newport Beach with all my buddies. A routine PET scan came around. Now, I had a less than 10% chance of reoccurrence. I thought I was in the clear, and I had relapsed. And at this point, this is when the City of Hope came into our lives. We had to switch hospitals, but at that time, I had no idea why. Everyone was so kind to me, the nurses, the PCAs, especially Dr. Foreman. There's nobody that I would want by my side than Dr. Foreman. So I just want to give you a little background on my mom real quick. She is very smart, perceptive, super stubborn, right, Dr. Foreman? Like rock-hard Jewish mother, always has my back. And she always had so many questions. She was up to date on the latest information and research about me. And so she probably asked Dr. Foreman hundreds of questions. But it didn't matter, because Dr. Foreman answered each one of those questions because he knew how important the relationship between my mom and I had. And so he treated her as important as I was. And that meant a lot to me. So after the holidays in 2011, we kind of underwent this stem cell transplant. Now, I kind of thought it was going to be similar to the first time, and I thought I would be okay, but I wasn't. It was 21 days in the hospital. It kind of took me by storm. And after about 16 or 17 days, I was really starting to feel better. I was trying to convince my mom to go home. She didn't leave my side one night. Every time I woke up, she was there. Every time I went to bed, she was there. So about day 17 or day 18, I finally convinced her to go home. And you gotta understand, she hadn't showered. Smells a little bit. The bed she was sleeping in, was really tiny, and I was feeling bad. And so she finally went home. And when she went home, I lost it. I cried for the first time in the hospital because the person who was there for me was no longer there. But what's great about that story is that my night nurse, Jacqueline, came in that night and spent 3 hours with me because she knew I wasn't okay. And she kind of eased me into the night. Now, knowing that that's one experience I've had with the nurses, but I've had so many great ones. And I think that's across the board for the City of Hope. Now, much like Tim, I did not want cancer to dictate the outlook on my life. So within 1 month of my transplant, I had a job at Johnny Rockets. I was bald, I had no eyebrows, the cooks made fun of me, and I looked really scary. But I didn't care. What mattered to me was that I was taking control of my life, and I wasn't letting cancer dictate it for me. Within 3 months, I had another job, and I was able to attend school the following year. Now, it was the summer before graduation, and it was there. My goal, right? I could just grab it. And I had a routine PET scan. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, there is no way. Dr. Foreman leaves me a voicemail. And when I called him back, I put the phone on speaker so my mom could hear. And he goes, Ben, I think we found something. And I just sat there. I think I dropped to the floor and I couldn't even talk anymore. Gave the phone to my mom, I walked outside. I just couldn't handle the fact that I was sick again for a third time. I was 21 years old. I'd already beaten it twice. It's the first time I said, why me? It's the first time I was complaining that I had cancer. I didn't want to leave school. I knew that if I left school once, again, I probably wouldn't return. And I think my family had that same fear. So when we finally kind of geared up for this transplant again, Dr. Foreman had mentioned that there was a drug available called SGN-35, which was actually fast-tracked for the FDA approval by a Nesvig fellow. He told me this drug would have little or no side effects. And I said, what? No side effects and chemotherapy. Those two things do not exist in my world. Every time I have chemo, I'm taken out of the game. No school, no sports, no friends. I'm done. I'm at home in bed trying to recover. But like he always is, Dr. Foreman was right. I had no side effects. I actually came home once every 3 weeks, drove myself sometimes, for 6 months, graduated right on time with all my friends, and nobody knew that I had cancer. Nobody knew that I was undergoing treatment. I had all my hair, I was playing sports, I was partying, I was having a good time. And that was the most important thing for me. What the Nesvig Fellowship Program did for me, it gave me the ability to graduate with my friends. It let me know that, it didn't matter that I had cancer because I was doing what I wanted to do. So 8 months ago, I received this match-unrelated donor bone marrow transplant. I kind of thought I knew what was coming, right? I had done it before, spent 21 days. It was completely wrong. Those 31 days were not even comparable to the first round. I was scared, a lot of complications. I was asking a lot of questions, and I wasn't happy. But to shine a light on a really hard time for me, at this time, the City of Hope, the doctors were on teams. There was about 4 to 5 doctors per team, and unfortunately, Dr. Foreman wasn't on rounds. And I was okay with that because I knew that all the other doctors at the City of Hope were amazing. Now, second or third night, I get a little knock at the door, and Dr. Foreman kind of peeps his head in my door and says, "Hey, Ben, how you doing?" And just to hear his voice, just for him to ask me how I was doing, the comfort of my own doctor, just made me feel so much better. And that next morning, my favorite nurse, Barb, she came in and she checked on me too. And so there's a little you gotta imagine, there's like a whiteboard in the room, and you can write down like how many days you have left in the hospital. I'm always asking how many days. And on that board, it said Dr. Foreman and Barb, and they competed with one another to see who was gonna see me more. Now, how great is that? A busy doctor like Dr. Foreman, my favorite nurse, they came in all the time just to check in on me. And that just made a really hard time that much better. So, fast forward a little bit, on April 29th, 2013 was the best day of my life. I had a routine PET scan that was kind of going to determine what I would say was the outlook of the rest of my life. You know, had I defeated this disease, what was going to happen if I didn't? And we didn't get the results right away. So Dr. Foreman told me we'd get them in a few days. That night at about 5:45, as I'm driving to the gym, I see Dr. Foreman calling me. And I'm like, ugh. So I pick it up, and right away, Dr. Foreman goes, Ben, you're 100% cancer-free. You are PET negative. And I just said, I was so happy. I could not stop crying because it meant so much to me to know that 5 years of battling, I was done, and all the work and the research that everyone did, it worked. And you got to understand, I'm driving down the 405. Anybody know the 405, right? The worst freeway in LA. And there's a lot of traffic, and I'm like, I gotta call my mom. Pick up the phone, and I'm like, Mom, you won't believe it. You know, I'm cancer-free, and she's just crying with me, and I hang up, and I call my dad, and I'm like, Dad, I can't believe it. I'm so emotional that I'm trying to drive, but I gotta call my parents, and I get it together, right? And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna call my cousin Jeff. Hey, Jeff, how you doing? He goes, good, what's up? I'm like, oh man, Jeff, I'm 100% cancer-free, and it was like this overwhelming of emotion. I was so happy that it was done. And as I'm at this gym, there's a new trainer there, and she was like, wow, this class, there's a lot of good energy in this room. I'm like, yeah, I would agree. She goes, everyone feels like they're super grateful to be here. Again, I would definitely agree. And she goes, does anybody want to just yell what they're grateful for? Yeah, I'm 100% cancer-free today. And I yelled it at the top of my lungs. I just screamed like I was screaming for everybody that's been in my corner, for everybody here, for everybody that's done something for me. I let everybody know that I was cancer-free. And I'll never forget how good that felt, because it was the truth, and I don't know, so happy. Randy Posh once said, experience is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted. I didn't want cancer, but the experiences I've taken away from cancer, I would never trade for the world. I am a stronger person because of them. My life is richer, and none of this would have been possible without the care of the City of Hope and everybody sitting in this room right now. I can guarantee that. Not only have you guys saved my life, you gave me the opportunity to live my life. From the people I've met and the giving I've witnessed, along with the relationships that I've created, especially the one with my mom, is something that I think about often. And I hope that someday my kids and I can have that exact same relationship. To hope that they would never, ever, ever have to go through what I went through to build that kind of relationship. I know that most everyone in this room has been touched by cancer, and if you haven't, consider yourself a lottery winner. Unfortunately, given the prevalence of cancer, we are going to need a place like the City of Hope, a place that has their eye on research, new technologies, patients, and caregivers, a place that treats patients as people that recognize the benefit of treating the whole person. I know that I would not be alive or standing here in front of you today if it wasn't for the team at City of Hope and the Nesvig Fellowship Program. John, thank you. Hanukkah, thank you. It's been an honor.
The hardest thing about emceeing this event is following that, stories like that. I assume that's your mom. Could we get her to stand up and applaud her? We should all be so lucky to have somebody in our corner like Ben had with his mom. The last 20 or 30 minutes is exactly why I wanted to bring my daughter to this event. It's exactly why I show up every year. It's exactly why I know that everybody is in this room. But I will say again what I think I've said every year, to have somebody like Dr. Foreman and to hear from somebody who's experienced life with cancer and now has life without cancer and has seen the personal, emotional touch that Dr. Foreman brings, I can't imagine what that added element means when you are dealing with cancer. So, gentlemen, both of you, my God, Ben, you're behind the camera? You should be in front of it. Someday. Good. He's going to be working at Fox Sports. See, there's another thing we have that you don't have, ESPN. We've got Ben Teller. Let me hear you. What do you got? We have Ben.